Double bag alert, double bag alert, double bag alert, folks. That's right. We got another loaded episode, all right. George Karlaftis and Zach Tom get paid. Jerry Jones takes a jab at both Dak and Micah Parsons. My thoughts on Omar Khan's press conference. Lloyd Howell and JC Tretter resign. The president threatens the Commanders. Will second round picks become guaranteed moving forward? And gut check time. That's right, folks. Gut check time. But this time we are going to the South, the dirty South, NFC and AFC North. Okay, all of this and more on the 86th episode of Football Junkies podcast. Okay, I am your host with the most. All right, I'm your chief bag roll dominance. That's right, chief head of the table, anything and everything related to the bag, rumors to the bag, and more. Okay, I am your GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it. All right, don't you worry about it, because guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. You already know how these things are about to go. This is going to be another load episode, because guess what? You are listening to the greatest football podcast that you can listen to on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. So guess what? On three, 1, 2, 3, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, we have a lot that's going on in the league, all right? But let's get into these bag alerts, all right? So, George Karlaftis, defensive end for the Chiefs. It's a 4-year, $88 million deal, $62 million guaranteed, and he'll be making $22 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 35 tackles and 8 sacks. Great deal for the Chiefs. Great deal for George Karlaftis, okay? This doesn't break the bank. This doesn't put them in any financial problems moving forward. And it also rewards a very impactful player that has played a very pivotal role within the last few Super Bowl runs that the Chiefs have had. You're talking about somebody that when Chris Jones is occupied with 2 and 3 tackles and tight ends and receivers and whatnot, guess what? George Karlaftis just comes right on in. He gets his pressures. He gets his sacks. Maybe makes a forced fumble. Maybe recovers a fumble. That's just who George Karlaftis is, all right? He's not going to be somebody that's going to be talked about like a Myles Garrett or TJ Watt or any of the other top-end pass rushers, but he is on that second to maybe third tier of pass rushers, okay? Now let's talk about Zach Tom, all right? Right tackle for the Packers inks a 4-year, $88 million deal with a max value, which is important, of $92 million, okay? He gets a $30.2 million signing bonus, which is the largest signing bonus for any offensive lineman in NFL history, and he has $30.2 million in guarantees, and he'll be making $22 million a year. Again, great business once again. The Packers value their own players, and they're making sure that they take care of their players. Now, I do know that a lot of insiders have said that the Packers aren't done giving out extensions, because currently, right now, they're talking with Quay Walker and I think 1 or 2 other players that are up for extensions. So I wouldn't be surprised by the end of this episode, we probably get more breaking news of somebody else getting paid as well. So all in all, really good deal for Zach Tom. All right, now let's get into the real things everybody wants to talk about, okay? And that is Jerry Jones. That's right, Mr. Jerry Jones taking a jab at both Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons. So training camp started with the Cowboys not too long ago, and of course, Jerry being Jerry, he has his little press conference and whatnot, and people are talking about the whole Micah Parsons situation and everything. So this is what Jerry Jones had to say, and I quote, "I remember signing a player for the highest paid position in the league, and he got knocked out 2/3 of the year. So there's a lot of things you can think about just as the player does when you're thinking about committing and guaranteeing money," end quote. That's at Dak Prescott. This is what he said about Micah Parsons, though, and I quote, "Just because we signed him doesn't mean we're going to have him. He was hurt 6 games last year. Contracts are 4, 5 years, okay? There's a lot of water under the bridge if you step out there and do something in the first 2 or 3. You can get hit by a car, seriously. So there's a lot to look at over all of the years that could make a big difference. Have you ever heard of any clubs committing to players and then they didn't pan out after they committed to them? We have," end quote. But here's the kicker of all of this. J.J. Watt puts his 2 cents into this situation as well. And this is what he says, and I quote, "Anytime you can publicly take a dig at your star quarterback and your star pass rusher simultaneously right before the season begins, you just got to take it. Nothing makes guys want to fight for you more than hearing how upset you are that they got hurt while fighting for you," end quote. But Micah Parsons retweeted this tweet. See, these are the quotes from a reactive instead of proactive owner. Jerry Jones has always been reactive when it comes to paying his star players. From Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb, and now even Micah Parsons. Jerry Jones continues to get in his own way when it comes to negotiations. I understand that you may be frustrated with how much money you're giving out to these players, but guess what? They play one of the most physical sports in the entire world. So at some point, somebody's going to get hurt. Someone's going to miss a few games. That's the business. So I don't understand why you're taking jabs at your star quarterback, at your star pass rusher, and at your star players as a whole. See, if the Cowboys were actually smart, they would have been proactive in the contract negotiations with Micah Parsons. I would have tried to get Micah Parsons to sign a deal right after Max Crosby signed his, because that was the sweet spot. But then after Myles Garrett and TJ Watt got their deals, it's over. You're going to have to reset the market for Micah Parsons. And if you don't, Micah Parsons is going to hit free agency next year, and he will single-handedly be the biggest defensive free agent since Reggie White. And we know that if he hits free agency, he may even take less just to be in a better situation. Would he stay in the division? Would he go out of the division? Because I can assure you right now, there's at least 10 to 15 teams that would be willing to sign a blank check for Micah Parsons. So Jerry, either you got to suck it up and sign Micah Parsons, or stop complaining, stop throwing jabs at your players, and actually try to win a playoff game for once. Now let's keep this thing going, okay? So Omar Khan finally speaks with the media after all the moves that he's made in this offseason so far. So here's just a few bullet points that I took away from yesterday's press conference, okay? So when asked about the departure of Minka Fitzpatrick, this is what Omar Khan had to say, and I quote, "I don't know if it was necessarily moving on from Minka. We had an opportunity to acquire 2 Pro Bowl players. We felt that where we are as a team made sense for us. We have a lot of respect for Minka. That's a great football player," end quote. When asked about Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey and their roles and how they're going to be utilized on the team, this is what Omar Khan had to say, and I quote, "Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey both can line up in different places than their usual positions, and they'll see how it all shakes out on the field before they determine their exact roles," end quote. Omar Khan also said that he feels really good about the team as a whole, but wouldn't rule out making another move if the right opportunity came along. But this is what he had to say about the wide receiver room, and I quote, "I feel really good. Obviously, we traded for DK. DK is going to be an impactful player for us. But I saw how the growth in Calvin Austin last year, and that was really cool to see. Watching Roman Wilson this offseason, it's been really great to see his progression and where he's at, and I think we would have seen more of it last year towards the end of last year." He said it, not me. "If he would have had the opportunity to play. We acquired Robert Woods, a veteran leader in that room, so I feel really good about the position," end quote. Omar Khan also said that he doesn't rule out looking at the safety market as well. While I understand this trade was a really big trade, it was addition by subtraction. Because you trade away a really great player in Minka Fitzpatrick to bring in 2 really good players as well. I understand that Minka Fitzpatrick has been playing his best ball and he has been making splash plays because everybody measures everything by splash and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, Minka Fitzpatrick played a very important role on this team. And we cannot solely blame him for the mistakes of the defense, specifically the secondary over the past 2 years because of Minka Fitzpatrick. Instead, we have to factor in coaching. We have to factor in that when you have someone in Cam Sutton who clearly was doing his own thing every single time he was on the field, it had a direct effect on everyone else. Not to mention, Minka Fitzpatrick at one point had to play a lot more in the box down at the line of scrimmage, where that's not where he likes to be. He likes to be in the backfield. He likes to roam. That's his role. So the fact that you were able to just trade away Minka Fitzpatrick like it was nothing, and the fact that this organization didn't do anything to say, you know what, Minka, we thank you for your efforts. We thank you for being the leader of that secondary. We thank you for being an upstanding person your entire tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have gone through their social media pages, and I have not seen not one post, not one thank you Minka post that's disrespectful to someone who has given his all to this team. Mind you, there was a period in time where Minka Fitzpatrick was playing with essentially one arm, and you just traded him away like it was nothing. Let me just read to you the stats from the past, I would say 3 years. So in 2022, he had 6 picks. 2023, he had 0. 2024, he only had 1 pick. So he's only had a 2-year slump. Okay, fine, whatever. But you should have tried to at least let things play out. If you would have made this move without giving up Minka Fitzpatrick, and by, I don't know, maybe the trade deadline, Minka Fitzpatrick isn't back to his old self, or he's not making quote-unquote splash plays, then move off of Minka. But you had to just try to give this a chance at least. Because this secondary would have been more formidable with Minka Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, Darius Slade, Jalen Ramsey, Jordan Porter Jr., Brandon Echols, Beanie Bishop, and Corey Trice. That's way more formidable than what we have right now. But again, Omar Khan emphasized in this press conference that he loves positional flexibility. Minka Fitzpatrick showed positional flexibility because he went from playing all the way in the backfield to now playing in the line of scrimmage to now playing in the box to now lining up at corner sometimes. He was flexible everywhere on this defense. This is the problem that I have with a lot of commentators, with a lot of journalists, with a lot of people who cover teams. Everybody talks about splash. If you're not making splash plays, then you're not effective. When that's not the whole kit and caboodle. You have to look at the player and the tape and everything that they put out in its entirety. It's not always the big hit, the interception, the forced fumble, the punch out, the touchdown, the catch, the grab, the truck. It's not always that. Sometimes it's just doing just the routine things. But we are so involved with 5 and 10 and 20-second clips of splash plays that now it has blinded us as fans and as people who actually watch football and saying, you know what? Man, that player really ain't that good no more. He's not making any more splash plays. What happened to the splash, man? Players can go through things. People can go through a slump. Minka Fitzpatrick, okay, wasn't playing his best ball in 2 years. Okay, fine. But if he rebounds this year and he goes back to his quote-unquote old self, who's complaining? Nobody. Because guess what? Everybody's going to be riding the Minka Fitzpatrick wave once again. You can't do that. You have to give people grace, especially people who have been nothing but a first-class player for this team. From answering questions when they lose and win to just showing up. Minka Fitzpatrick was a first-class citizen for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I can only imagine how he feels with all the blood, sweat, and tears that he gave to the Steelers, and just to be shipped away like it was nothing. You can even tell just by his posture and the way that he looks in Miami that he's still shaken up about this. That's why he still hasn't spoken to the media yet. Because I think he's still trying to deal with this entire process. But that's another story for another day. I don't want to go on my soapbox once again because nobody really cares about it. Because every time I say the things that need to be said about this team, I get flack for it. But let's get into this whole Lloyd Howell and JC Tretter situation. So a couple of days ago, Lloyd Howell, the former executive director for the booty cheeks and stripper poles with this. Okay, so let's just get into it. So this is the statement from Lloyd Howell about his resignation. And I quote, 2 years ago, I accepted the role of executive director of the NFLPA because I believe deeply in the mission of this union in the power of collective action to drive positive change for the players of America's most popular sport. Our members deserve a union that will fight relentlessly for their health, safety, financial futures, and long-term well-being. My priority has always been to lead that fight by serving this union with focus and dedication. It's clear that my leadership has become a distraction to the important work the NFLPA advances every day. For this reason, I have informed the NFLPA Executive Committee that I am stepping down as Executive Director of the NFLPA and Chairman of the Board of the NFL Players effective immediately. I hope this will allow the NFLPA to maintain its focus on its players' members ahead of the upcoming season. I am proud of what we've been able to accomplish at the NFLPA over the past 2 years. I will be rooting for the players from the sidelines as loud as ever, and I know the NFLPA will continue to ensure that players remain firmly at the center of football's future, end quote. But this is what J.C. Tretter had to say, and I quote, I'm not resigning because what I've been accused of is true. I'm not resigning in disgrace. I'm resigning because this has gone too far for me and my family, and I've sucked it up for 6 weeks. And I feel like I've been kind of left in the wind taking shots for the best of the organization. I got to the point this morning where I woke up and I realized like I'm going too deep dying on this fucking sword forever. I'll never ever be able to do what's best for me. And I will always pick what's best for the organization. And in the end, what's the organization done for me? Like nothing. I've been a bullet shield for 6 weeks for them where everything that's been controversial, it all just dumps down on me. And I've had nothing to fucking do with it. And that's when I was like, I'm done taking bullets for the organization on stuff I wasn't a part of and did not do. End quote. What a fiery response by J.C. Tretter. Oh, it's just so ground shaking, just so pivotal with the word choice that he used. Amazing. Hand clap for J.C. Tretter. No, let's just stop, okay? J.C. Tretter, your hand was caught in the cookie jar. You orchestrated a lot of this conundrum that the NFLPA is now going to have to clean up because you decided to go around the entire process of hiring the next executive director for the NFLPA. And by doing so, you covered your own tracks by making sure that you bring in somebody that's going to put you in position of power as well. By creating a position that was never created prior to this point. And so now when the kitchen gets really hot, and now everything is coming out about this whole collusion case and how you felt about it and your personal input and everything that you've said within the past few years, oh, you can't take it. Oh, I'm just tired of being the shield. Oh, I don't know what's going on anymore. I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You hired somebody that, for one, is a part-time consultant for a firm that is trying to acquire minority stakes in NFL teams, who was also a part of one of the largest scandals in U.S. history with Booz Allen, who also was making it rain at Magic City and at the world's biggest strip club in Florida. That's your guy. That's the person that you were tied to. So you have to fall on the sword just as much as he does. So you got to take them bullets. And you're going to continue to take them bullets. Because you know why? This needed to come out. This needed to be done because this collusion case showed that the current structure of the NFLPA is not for the players, but instead for the owners and the league who continue to find a way to limit guarantees for players. Players who, by the way, risk their bodies for this sport. So before we go any further, shout out to Pablo Torre, shout out to Pro Football Talk for coming together and putting out this collusion case story, because you know what? It opened up the floodgates to what's going on with the NFLPA. And also shout out to Dan Venetta Jr. and Kaylin Cather from ESPN as well, because you know why? If it wasn't for you guys working together to figure out exactly what's going on with the NFLPA, we would have never known anything about this. And I'm so glad that Pablo Torre was the first person to kick down the door with this case. Now let's get to Lloyd. Not Lloyd Howell, but Lloyd. Okay. Lloyd Howell, according to an article by Dan Venetta Jr. and Caitlin Cather of ESPN, he liked to go to the strip club. He liked to see strippers. So Lloyd Howell charged the union for 2 visits to a strip club, including a $738.82 car service. Howell was picked up at Fort Lauderdale International Airport on November 2nd of 2023 at 10:26. Now, before we go any further, let me just stop right here. They time-stamped when you got picked up from the airport. Yo, this is sick. Lloyd, you are a sick man, okay? Sick man. Well, but let's keep on going, okay? A union finance worker discovered that Howell went to Tootsie's Cabaret, the world's largest strip club in Florida. Ha ha! Imagine you're somebody, you're one of the financial workers for the NFLPA, you're checking all the, finances and whatnot, you're checking on, Wait, Tootsie's Cabaret. Wait a minute, let's go on here. Let's see what's going on. Tootsie's Cabaret. World's largest strip club. Lord, what? Yo, I would be. This is hilarious. Listen, I don't care what anyone says. This story is hilarious, but it gets even worse, okay? During this year's NFLPA Summit meeting on February 21st, Howell tagged along with employees to Magic City and accumulated $2,426 in charges, including cash withdrawal that ranged from $200 to $525 from the club ATM, and used 2, not 1, but 2 VIP rooms. Yo. Howell was giving it up. He was telling his life story. Yeah. Where's Shanisha? Where's Shanisha? I thought somebody told me she was performing tonight. Meet me in the VIP room. 2,426. Brother, that is somebody's rent. That is somebody's car note that you just spent at Magic City. Ain't no way. See, if it was maybe about maybe $300, okay, fine. No problem with that. But for you to accumulate that much money in charges, yo, you like them scribbles, okay? But here's the reason for this expense. And I quote, player engagement event to support and grow our union. End quote. Now, you know damn well this ain't for no player engagement event. Because any player can go to a strip club by themselves. What does it look like you go into the club? All right, ladies, we got Lloyd Howell and the NFLPA in the building. That's right, show them a good time, not a long time. Give it up for Lloyd Howell and the NFLPA. We want to thank them for coming tonight to Tootsie's Cabaret. No, man, you can't do that. You just cannot do that. Listen, imagine you go to Tootsie's one night and you see half the league in there on top of the NFL Players Association as well in there. Yo, it's going to be sick. Oh my God. But it gets even worse. Howell instructed one of the employees that he tagged along with to file the expense reports. He was like, nah, bro, that can't show up on my financial reports. That got to show up on your financial reports. I only tagged along with you. I wasn't the one leading the charge. But then he also goes on to say this. An employee noted that on March 23rd, that report, $736 was the final amount that he was charged to close the tab for both for both secluded sections for our player members. This included food, alcoholic drinks, fees, taxes, and gratuity. So you was probably getting some wings, had a nice little drink with you. You know, your favorite stripper is dancing to your favorite song in the VIP room. Probably telling them your life story, what's going on at home with your wife and kids and whatnot. Probably telling them what's going on at work and everything. Oh my God, this is hilarious. Give it up for Lloyd. Lloyd Howell's in the building. Lloyd Howell's in the building. Lloyd Howell is in the building, ladies. That's right. Show him a good time and not a long time. I just have one question. Did Lloyd Howell get the Lou Williams special? Imagine you and your boys on a Friday night. Y'all say, you know what? Let's go to Magic City, man. You guys go to Magic City. You know, it's some beautiful women around you and everything. It's a good time, good vibes, good energy and whatnot. Next thing you know, you see about 5 or 6 people in suits, and you see one dude, a bald headed dude with some glasses, and one of your friends is like, wait a minute, ain't that Lloyd Howell? Yeah, that is Lloyd Howell. That's Lloyd Howell from the NFL Players Association. Oh wait, he's going to the VIP room. Yo, your mind's gonna be blown. What is this? This is like a soap opera, but on steroids. Like, imagine this. This is the Days of Our Lives NFLPA edition starring Lloyd Howell Jr. of the NFL Players Association featuring JC Tretter. Like, what do we... This is hilarious. Listen, if y'all don't think it's funny, that's perfectly fine. I don't care. But this is hilarious, okay? Now, let's get into something a little bit more serious. I know we're going to have to talk about politics for just a little bit. Once we talk about politics, then we can move forward and talk about everything else, okay? I know. Everybody doesn't want to talk about it. You could skip this part. It's perfectly fine. I'm not going to blame you for it. Okay? So let's just get into it. Let's get it over with. So the president released this statement on his platform, and I quote, "The Washington Whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There is a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams with a storied past, our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen." This is what he said. It's not what I said. "Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. Owners, get it done." But then he backtracks what he said, and then he says this: "My statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of this ridiculous moniker, Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. The team would be so much more valuable and the deal would be more exciting for everyone. Cleveland should do the same with the Cleveland Indians. The owner of the Cleveland baseball team, Matt Dolan, who is very political, has lost 3 elections in a row because of that ridiculous name change. What he doesn't understand is that if he changes the name back to the Cleveland Indians, he might actually win an election. Indians are being treated very unfairly. Make Indians great again." Before we get into how I feel about this, let's get into everything else that comes with this, all right? So this is what Jacqueline D. Leon, senior staff attorney for the Native American Rights Fund, had to say about this, and I quote, "No Native American child should have to sit through a pep rally or in a stadium where the culture is being mocked," end quote. Now, Savannah Romero, a member of the Eastern Shoshone Nation and co-founder and deputy director of the Black Liberation Indigenous Sovereignty Collective, had this to say, and I quote, "We are language keepers, land protectors, survivors of attempted genocide, and a part of sovereign nations. To equate native people with their cartoonish mascots alongside animals is a gross and ongoing tactic of dehumanization," end quote. Now, this is what somebody else had to say. Comes from Beth Wright, a member of the Pobelo of Lagana. My apologies once if I'm butchering the name. And I quote, "Native people are still working to revitalize what the United States tried to erase. Native mascots work directly against these efforts by perpetuating false historical narratives about Native people and false depictions of who Native people are today," end quote. In 2013, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights approved a resolution calling for the owners of the Washington Redskins at that time, Dan Snyder and company, to change its name. This resolution also called for the elimination of names and mascots that, and I quote, "promote negative stereotypes and connotations or that trivialize Native American cultures," end quote. As a DMV native and somebody that experienced all of this, it was a lot of tension. You're talking about a lot of opinions, and you had this side that said this and that side that said that, and it was a lot to take in at that time. It was a very sensitive topic to talk about, especially in public. And this is just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. You can skip this part if you want. I have no problem with that. Keep the name where it is. Do not try to change it back to the Redskins. The Redskins is a derogatory name. To me, I believe that it's a slur. And It just has no need to be on a team. This team, within the last 3 years, has undergone a lot of change. And changing it back to the Redskins would erase all the progress that they've made so far. They are trying to erase Dan Snyder and the cloud that was over this team for all of those years. They're trying to remove that. And by going backwards and changing it back to their original name, it's not worth it from a public standpoint. It's not worth from a financial standpoint. It's not worth it in any way that you look at this. There were even times where commentators who were covering any game that the Washington football team was playing, they would not say Redskin. They would just say the Washington team, or they would just say Washington, because of how it sounded and just everything that was tied to it. If you don't know what a Redskin is, you go look it up and you do the research yourself. Because this is just something that you just can't do no more. And I understand, a lot of people say, well, society now is too woke and everybody's too sensitive and it's always this and it's always that. It's change this and change that. Okay, fine. That's your opinion. I have no problem with that, okay? But when it comes to depiction of people, black and brown people, that's where we draw a line. For the longest time, we have seen a lot of teams, either intentionally or unintentionally, use Native Americans, black people, and other indigenous people in a cartoonish and degradeful type of way. And by doing so, you now are in a place in society where people can now project how they feel about this. It's no longer just a small little rally in front of the stadium and then, it just dissipates and whatnot. No. You have social media. You have the internet now. You have various organizations that now have influence and now have connections with people who have influence that can project how they feel about these things. But now that we've talked about this, let's get into the opinion of what said person said on what should happen. Respectfully, Mr. President, stay out of this. You have far more pressing things to worry about and far more pressing things that you need to address than the name of a football team. In the name of a baseball team. Even though we don't talk about baseball, we still have to add them in as well. People are fine with where both teams' names are and their logos and merch and everything else. So why would you want them to go backwards and to erode all the progress that they've made so far? And then for you to say, hey, if you guys don't appease me, I'm going to personally intervene with this deal and make sure that it doesn't happen. And we have seen this same tactic time again during this administration, this bullying tactic to say, hey, we are going to strong arm you to appease us. And it's time out for it. Josh Harris, if I were you, I would not appease to this. I would not think about this. I wouldn't even get an inkling of possibly changing the name. You have made so much progress in such a small amount of time. Do not erode that to appease a person who is only focused on what benefits him and his pockets, but instead continuing to grow this team and to regain the trust and the love that this fan base has been looking to give back to this team for the past 20-something years. Now, I will say this, and I've been thinking about this, and I thought about this prior to me recording. If you are the Native American community as a whole, not just one specific tribe, but as a whole, I think you could possibly be open to the idea of possibly reopening that door only, and I mean only, if they follow your parameters. And I feel like, personally, I think the main parameters that could possibly work is that, one, the Native American people as a whole come together and they create their own logo that the team will use to represent them. No longer would you use the chief. And if they do choose the old logo, let them make that decision, not people who are not from the Native American community. As well as a percentage of revenue that comes from the team should go directly to the Native Americans. Every single tribe should get a piece of that revenue. Every t-shirt, every hat, every hoodie, every coffee mug, every ticket, every TV deal, a portion of that should go back to the Native American community as a way of saying, you know what, we appreciate you for allowing us to represent you guys. That is the only way that this could work. And another thing, for you to say that you would personally intervene with this is just childish. It's just a bullying tactic. But I will say this. If your delivery was better, instead of saying, if you don't do this, then I'm going to do this. Instead of saying, hey, let me be the neutral party. Let's come together. Let's put our heads together. Let's find some common ground and let's get some resolution with this matter. Because I do believe that the Commanders will go back to Washington. The problem is there's a lot of red tape when it comes to the stadium and the process of building the stadium and everything that comes with it. And I can only say this because I live in the area and I've been tracking this story this entire time. It's been a very red tape type of issue because there was a period in time where there was just going to be negotiations between the DC government and the Commanders. But now that time is up. Now Maryland and Virginia, as well as DC, can all be involved in negotiations with the Commanders. And all three of the regions are trying to find a way to bring the Commanders to their respective areas. And so here's the part where things get a little bit weird, okay? The DC government, it's a little bit confusing because you have some people that say, oh yes, I've talked to this person with the Commanders, I've talked to that person with that Commanders. Then you have, the mayor that says I've had communications with this person, that person. It's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of backbiting and a lot of, he said, she said, I'm going to go behind you and talk to this person. I'm going to go behind you and have this secret lunch meeting or whatever. It's a lot of that. Just get this thing done so we can just move forward. Because right now, the longer that this draws out, the better the chance that Maryland or Virginia could possibly have a chance to bring the Commanders to their respective areas. And I just don't think that's possible. Even now, where the Commanders are, you can't say the Washington Commanders because why? Technically speaking, the stadium is not located in DC. It's not even near DC. It technically is in Maryland. So I don't know what they have to do to get this done, but please, for the love of God, please get this done. And please do not change the name under any circumstance. I don't care what type of tactics he used, what type of threats that he throws at the ownership of the Commanders. Do not give in. Stay true, stay firm. They will forever be the Washington Commanders. Granted, I understand that the legacy of this team is tied to the Redskins and whatnot, but sometimes you just need a breath of fresh air. And that's what the Commanders bring. Now that we're done with the politics, let's go back to football, please, because I am so uncomfortable with this, okay? You guys don't realize how much I don't like talking about politics, especially on a public platform. I do not like talking about politics. I try to stay away from politics as best as I possibly can. But anytime that it ties into football, I try to be as lenient as I possibly can. And I try not to, be radical or too conservative or be offensive to any sides. No, I just want to try to be as neutral as I possibly can when it comes to any of these type of topics, especially for something like this. Let's get into something more important, and that is second round picks getting fully guaranteed contracts. Pardon the interruption, but this is your GM, your Bag Road Dominus, here to talk about RSS.com, all right? So if you guys already don't know, I am a RSS.com affiliate, and so I just want to tell you for just a quick moment about why you should choose RSS.com. So me personally, on my journey of podcasting, I was looking at different platforms just to find the right place. And I looked here, I looked there, I looked everywhere, but I checked out RSS.com, and it was the best decision I ever made. From low prices to interactive analytics, to as well as helping you with your distribution. RSS.com does it all. Not to mention, they just started a Slack channel where you can network and interact with other podcasters and even get some insightful tips on how you can increase your podcast even more. So head on over to rss.com. I will be attaching my RSS affiliate link within the description. When you click on that link, I will be able to receive some compensation for it. And with that compensation, I will be able to give you guys a better product. A lot of that money will go towards upgrading the microphones, computers, new subscriptions for more analytical information that we can use for future podcasts, all of that and more. Thank you for your support, and thank you RSS.com for making me an affiliate. Now back to the good stuff. So for the past few days prior to a majority of teams reporting to training camp, we've saw an influx of second round picks getting signed. So some of them got fully guaranteed, some of them didn't get fully guaranteed, some of them got a little bit more guarantees towards their third and fourth year of the contract. It all depends, but we're going to go over all of them. All right, so let's just start. So Alfred Collins with the 49ers, he inked a 4-year, $10.3 million deal with over $9 million in guarantees. Donovan Izaraku for the Cowboys, he got $8.1 million guaranteed. JT Tuimalau for the Colts. It was only just reported as a 4-year deal. They really didn't get into the numbers and whatnot. Terrence Ferguson, $8.5 million guarantees. Will Johnson, there's nothing to report with that. Only thing that they said was just 4-year deal, of course. Ariante Ursary for the Texans, 4 years, $9.2 million deal. Carson Swearinger, of course, we already know, fully guaranteed. Jaden Higgins, we already know, fully guaranteed. Nick Emmanwori for the Seahawks, fully guaranteed. Quinshon Judkins, right now, he's unsigned because he was arrested on a domestic violence charge on July 12th. Jonah Savania for the Dolphins. My bad if I butcher your last name, bro. 100% guaranteed. Travion Henderson, I don't see it, but I think it is guaranteed as well. Luther Burden, just a generic, rookie deal. Tyler Shuck, fully guaranteed. TJ Sanders, he inked a 4-year, $10.6 million deal with $10 million guaranteed. Mason Taylor, 91.3% guaranteed. Demetrius Knight, 80% guaranteed. Let's see, Elijah Arroyo, $6.8 million guaranteed. Nick Scorton, just a 4-year deal. That's the only thing that they report. Oluwafemi Oladijo for the Titans, just the first 3 years guaranteed. Benjamin Morrison, 96% guaranteed in the 3rd year. Anthony Belton, all it says is sign a rookie contract. Trey Harris, he just agreed to the deal. I know this is weird. Ozzie Tripolo for the Bears, the first 2 years are fully guaranteed, with the 3rd year only guaranteed at 72%. Tate Ratledge, he just agreed to the deal. Jack Besh, the details are pending. Same thing with Mike Green. RJ Harvey for the Broncos, the first 2 years are fully guaranteed, and the 3rd year is only guaranteed 47.7%. Trey Amos, he only agreed to the deal. Same thing with Shamar Turner. Omar Norman Lott, same thing, just signed his rookie deal. Andrew Makuba, $7.1 million guaranteed. So you saw more teams actually just guaranteeing a percentage of that 3rd or 4th year. And of course, you saw a few teams that just said, you know what, screw it, we'll just give you a fully guaranteed deal. But I think with all this being said and done, I think the number one question that needs to be asked is, will second round picks moving forward ask for fully guaranteed contracts? Because we all know that first rounders, their contract is guaranteed. So I wonder with Jaden Higgins and Carson Swearinger and Nick Emmanwori and a few others getting fully guaranteed contracts, will that now have a ripple effect on next year's draft? And moving forward, will that also affect possibly, 3rd round picks, maybe 4th round picks moving forward? I would not be surprised if next year during the NFL players meeting, they probably say, you know what, we're going to find a way to make sure that second round picks don't get fully guaranteed deals and whatnot. But this was expected. We know specifically with this draft, more teams were interested in the 2nd and 3rd round than actually the 1st round. And a lot of the people who were slated to be 1st round picks actually fell into the 2nd. And that's why you saw such an influx of people just flying off the board so quickly. But this is something I'm definitely keeping an eye on moving forward because I know this is going to have future ramifications. But let's get into gut check time, all right, folks? I know this is the part that everybody has been waiting for, so let's do it, all right? AFC South, you already know: Colts, Jaguars, Texans, and Titans, all right? So let's start with the Colts. The positional battles that I'm watching out right now: quarterback, right tackle, wide receiver, defensive end, and backup running back, all right? Players that I'm keeping an eye on: Anthony Richardson, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, DJ Giddens, Latu, Khalil Herbert, and Bernard Raymond. All right. So the storyline for the Colts is, who will be the starting quarterback for the Colts this year? Because right now, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones have a clean slate. Nobody has an advantage over the other. And right now, Anthony Richardson has to prove that he is the franchise quarterback for the Colts. Because right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they're already having meetings on possibly scouting for next year's quarterback. Because right now, Anthony Richardson has not shown anything. He hasn't even shown that he can play an entire season so far. Now, for Daniel Jones, it's a little bit more complicated with his. We know the Giants let go of him because he wasn't living up to the expectations of that contract, and then he jumps on the way with the Vikings. He's the backup for the Vikings and really doesn't play for them, and then, he's looking for another team, and so here we are. But right now, both quarterbacks have to have spectacular training camps. Because if neither one of them show anything, they're gone. And it doesn't help that next year's draft class is supposed to be really good at quarterback. I mean, come on. And I know I haven't talked about it, and I know I have to talk about it, but, you're going to have Drew Aller, Carson Beck, Lenore Sellers, Fernando Mendoza. Who else? I could probably name about maybe 3 or 4 other quarterbacks, except for Archie Manning, because Archie Manning is not going to be in next year's draft class. You heard it here first in the Football Junkies podcast. I believe it and I know it, okay? But let's get back to the Colts. The Colts should be one of the few teams that we should be talking about well into the playoffs. But what is the number one thing that has kept them from taking things to the next level? Bad and inconsistent quarterback play. And so right now, if you're Anthony Richardson, you have something to prove. If you're Daniel Jones, you have something to prove. So both of you guys are going to have to hash this thing out from the start of training camp all the way to the last preseason game. You guys are on a thin, and I mean the thinnest string that you could possibly think of right now. So with A.D. Mitchell, I want to see more from him. I want to see, can he be a more effective wide receiver? Because he has all the talent to be a really good receiver. The question is, can he put it together? And granted, I understand, when you don't have a really good quarterback, sometimes that can, diminish your stats and how effective you are on the field. I get all of that, but still, you want to see more from A.D. Mitchell. Same thing with Alec Pierce. Is there another level to his game? And if so, can it be achieved? Because right now, if Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones play at an average to above average quarterback play, who's really complaining? Because everything else is already in place. You made an investment in getting Tyler Warren. You have Mo Alley Cox. You have Jonathan Taylor. You have A.D. Mitchell. You have Michael Pittman Jr. You have a really good offense. Everything has to come together. And people's game has to be elevated even more. Same thing with the backup running back position. Will it be DJ Giddens or will it be Khalil Herbert? Because me personally, I think that is another sleeper of a position that needs to be talked about, just because we all know that Jonathan Taylor is probably going to miss, 2 to maybe 3 games during the season. And that's perfectly fine. But you want to make sure that you have a backup running back that is just as effective and consistent as your primary back. And when we look at right tackle, Bernard Raymond, I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat, but I want to see, can his game be elevated? It's the same thing that I'm saying with all the other offensive players. Can your game be elevated? All right. I understand that they lost Braden Smith via free agency, but I still believe that this is still a really good offensive line. Now let's shift over things to the defense. All right. Latu. You got to show something, bruh. Because they made an investment in the second round, I think it was. Yeah. In the second round with getting JT Tuimoloau. So, I mean, come on. You got to show something. Now, I'm not saying you got to put up, 12 or 13 sacks, but I think between 8 to 10 sacks, I think that would actually be really good. Now, when we look at possible free agency additions, if they want to take that route, especially for running back, I mean, you have Jamal Williams, Gus Edwards, Jeff Wilson, Amir Abdullah, Chase Edmonds, Ernest Johnson, Jermichael Hasty. If you want to go with the defensive end free agency route, You can go with Jadeveon Clowney, DeMarcus Walker, Montravius Adams, Jerry Hughes. If you want to do tackle, all right, you have George Fant, Andreas Pete, Isaiah Wynn, Chris Hubbard, even though the tackle free agency crop right now really isn't the best. But if you want to take those routes, they are readily available. And let's go to the Jaguars, right? Positional battles to watch out for. Running back, right tackle, safety. So the players I'm keeping an eye out for are Eric Murray, Andrew Wingard, Anton Harrison, and Travis Etienne. Now the storyline for the Jaguars is, can Liam Cohen improve this offense? And the reason why I say that is because we all saw how that Buccaneers offense was last season. It was effective, it was consistent, and it was putting points on the board. So if you're the Jaguars, you want at least half of that. Now, am I saying, are you going to get all of it? No, because you don't have the same type of players that the Buccaneers have. But if you can at least get a fraction of that, I think that would be great. I think that would let people know, like, hey, we are heading in the right direction, and all the investments that we have made so far, they're working. But if this offense can take another step in the right direction, there's going to be some serious questions that are going to have to be asked once this season is over with. The reason why I listed both safeties for players to watch out for is because one of them is not going to be on this team, because remember, the Jaguars drafted the safety fairly high in this past draft. So either Andrew Wingard is going to get cut or Eric Murray. Now with Anton Harrison, I want to see if he can continue to grow, because right now he hasn't played his best ball, and I want to see if he can at least show, like, hey, I am that guy. I am your franchise right tackle. Because right now, Liam Cohen has already put him on notice. Like, hey, listen, if you're not showing anything, we're going to move off of you. So if I'm Anton Harrison, I got to ball out. Now for Travis Etienne, that's a little bit of a weird situation, and I'll explain why. Because we all saw that they declined his fifth-year option, so everyone's thinking, oh, okay, they're going to trade Travis Etienne. So far, they haven't. And so far, he's now taken a back step when it comes to the roster and getting the snaps and just being on the field. Because now Tank Bixby is now the starting running back for this team. And so right now, if you're Travis Etienne, do you want to force a trade? Do you want to go in a different direction? Do you want to stay with the Jaguars? Me personally, I wouldn't. Because you guys clearly have shown that you guys don't value me as a player, so I might as well just want to go somewhere else. Now, when we look at possible free agency additions, if they want to take that route, of course, with running back, as I've already said, Jamal Williams, Gus Edwards, Jeff Wilson, Naheem Hines, Amir Abdullah, Chase Edmonds, Ernest Johnson. Actually, you know what? No, scratch that. Naheem Hines actually signed with the Chargers. I remember that. But when we look at safety, however, if they want to take a veteran approach, you have Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons, Jordan Whitehead, Quandre Diggs, and Chuck Clark. Tackle, if you want to bring in competition for Anton Harrison, you can bring in George Fant, Andreas Pete, Isaiah Wynn, Chris Hubbard. Somebody that they're not necessarily going to take his job, but they're definitely going to push him. But let's keep things going, all right? Let's talk about the Texans. So their positional battles, tackle and wide receiver, all right? Players to keep an eye out for: Cam Robinson, Ariante Ursary, John Mechie, and Xavier Hutchinson. Everyone's probably going to be wondering, why would you put the rookie that they just drafted on player to look out for? Because I want to see how he holds up against matchups between Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get rid of him. No, of course not. But I just want to see where he is at this point, all right? Cam Robinson, yes, they did make a trade for him last season. Me, personally, I would have tried to get off of him, but I guess I see the reason on why you would want to keep him, but I just want to see where he is at this point. Because right now, if you're the Texans, do you want to see how things go with Cam Robinson? Do you want to try to make another crazy move for a left tackle if someone becomes available? What exactly are you going to do moving forward to address left tackle long term? Because right now, I don't think Cam Robinson is the long-term option. I just think he's just a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. Yes, I know it's a weird monocle, but that's just how I view things. I know it's weird. Don't worry about it. But when it comes to wide receiver, they have a lot of wide receivers. Okay, you got Jaden Higgins, Tank Dell, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson. I know I'm missing a few others. Who else? Evan Ingram. You have a lot of receivers. So somebody isn't going to make the team. Me personally, I think it's between John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. Now, John Mechie, you can give him a little bit of leeway because he was battling some type of disease, and he wasn't able to play for a while. But since then, he really hasn't had a chance to really be on the field. So do you want to send him into a better, into a better opportunity where he could actually be effective on the field? Possibly. It's the same thing with Xavier Hutchinson. So right now, that entire wide receiver room is on notice. When we look at possible free agency additions, for tackle, you have George Fant, Andreas Pete, Isaiah Wynn, Chris Hubbard, if you want to bring in competition for both Cam Robinson and Ariante Ursary. For wide receiver, if you want to take that route, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, Chris Conley, and Jamison Crowder. But the storyline for the Texans is, can this offense improve? And here's why. We all saw that this offense was just atrocious last year. From the offensive line being unable to protect C.J. Stroud to the run game being inconsistent, the offense just wasn't good at all. Want to see, can they rebound and actually improve? Because, mind you, they made additions at wide receiver, but they also added Nick Chubb as well. So now you have a tandem of both Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb as well. And they made some investments into the offensive line. So I want to see, can this offense become a little bit better than what it has been the last 2 years? Because we all know that if the run game was just a little bit better against the Chiefs in the playoffs, they could have won that game. The defense was keeping them in the game. It was just the offense was just so stagnant and it was so inconsistent that C.J. Stroud couldn't do anything. But only time will tell. Now let's get to the Titans, all right? So their positional battles. Guard, wide receiver, tight end, and left tackle. Players to keep an eye out for: Xavier Restrepo, Traylon Burks, Van Jefferson, Dan Moore, Peter Skoronski, and Chig Okonkwo. I think I butchered your last name. I didn't mean to do it, bro. Now their storyline. Can this team improve? I understand that they just drafted Cam Ward. I understand that they still have a lot of rookies, especially on the offense. But can this offense improve? Peter Skoronski, you got to see more from him. Because right now, things are looking a little bit shaky, okay? Sure, they moved J.C. Latham back over to right tackle, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they moved him back over to right tackle. Dan Moore's left tackle. I want to see, is Dan Moore going to live up to that contract? Because the Titans gave him a big payday. They paid him a lot of money. They paid him like he is an above average to possibly borderline elite left tackle. So let's see if he lives up to that deal. Wide receiver, Xavier Restrepo. Right now, you're on the outside looking in. But you have a chance to make this roster. Because the wide receiver room outside of Calvin Ridley isn't completely solidified. So you could do it. And mind you, you sort of have an advantage because you have chemistry with Cam Ward. Now, when we look at the tight end, however, I really don't know what to tell you at tight end. Now, me personally, I would try to make a move to get Noah Fant. Because right now, that is probably the only viable option at tight end. Sure, you could probably get, Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis, Jordan Akins, or C.J. Uzomah. But I think Noah Fant has a little bit more upside with his game. Van Jefferson, I don't want to say he's on the outside looking in. Because I do think he'll make this roster. But it all depends on how well he plays. Traylon Burks, you're on the outside looking in. But I will say this, I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans make multiple moves to bring in wide receivers. I think they probably would make a move for someone like a John Mechie or Xavier Hutchinson or Dontavian Wicks or Romeo Dobbs if they become readily available. Because right now, outside of Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard, what else do you really have? And this is no disrespect to any of the other offensive players on this, on this team and whatnot, but for a rookie quarterback, you want to try to surround them with as much talent as you possibly can. Me personally, I feel like they can make more of an investment into the offense because right now, this offense leading into week 1 of the regular season is not good enough. You need to at least make at least 2, maybe 3 moves just to upgrade it, just so it can be, average to possibly above average. Just saying. Now, when we look at possible free agency additions, like I said before with tight end, you have Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis, Jordan Akins, C.J. Uzomah. You also have Noah Fant as well. Guard, you have Brandon Scherf if you want to bring in competition for Peter Skoronski, Shaq Mason, Will Hernandez, Joe Feliciano, Cody Whitehair, Dalton Reisner, Mark Glanowski. Wide receiver, I mean, sure, you have Tyler Lockett and you have Calvin Ridley and company, but if you want to take, free agency route, you can, get Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd. If you want to bring him back, Chris Conley, Jamison Crowder. Tackle, you could bring in George Fant, Andreas Pete, Isaiah Wynn, Michael Dunn, Raven Clark, Chris Hubbard, and Jermaine Ifedi if you want to take that route, just so you can have competition for both J.C. Latham and Dan Moore as well, but also having a safety blanket just in case they get hurt or, anything crazy happens. But I want to see, can this team improve? Because the defense have pieces. The offense has pieces. But the question is, can you put them together and can this be an effective team? Now, I'm not saying this team is going to win 8 games or this team is going to win 10 games or go to the playoffs or whatnot. But I will say this. If this team wins at least 5 games and Cam Ward looks pretty good, I think you're in the right direction. But if this team struggles, we might have to have a conversation. Just saying. Now let's go to the NFC North. Not North. South. I don't know why I'm thinking about the North. Saints, Falcons, Buccaneers, Panthers. This one is going to be a little bit controversial, but I really don't care. So let's start. So for the Saints, positional battles to watch out for: quarterback, left guard, safety, cornerback, and defensive line. Players to keep an eye out for: Tyler Shucks, Spencer Rattler, Trevor Penning, Jordan Howden, Jonas Sanker, Alante Taylor, Ugo Amadi, Brian Brees, David Godchild, Nathan Shepard, and Vernon Broughton. All right. So the storyline for the Saints is, what's the identity of this team? Granted, I understand they've had a lot of change in this offseason. You now have a new head coach, a new regime. So what is the identity of this team? How is this team going to be better than it has been the last 2 years? Are they going to be more effective in the run game, in the pass game, a little bit of both? What exactly is the identity of this team moving forward? Because right now, if I'm Kellen Moore, I would use this upcoming season as a measuring stick to see where the team is. I want to see, hey, do we need to make significant upgrades in the draft next year and free agency? Are we good with what we have? What exactly do we need to do to make this team better within the next 2 to 5 years? Because right now, you have Chris Olave, you have Alvin Kamara, you have Tyler Fuaga. You have pieces on the offense. Same thing with the defense. But you want to make sure that this team is headed in the right direction under Kellen Moore. So let's get into quarterbacks, all right? So Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler. Both of them have a clean slate, and neither one of them has an advantage over the other. So right now, I think my number one question for Kellen Moore would be, how long is it going to take for you to come to a decision on who's going to be the starting quarterback for this team? Are you going to wait all the way until the end of training camp, or are you going to make a decision by the second or maybe last game of the preseason? Because right now, I think I probably would want to roll with Spencer Rattler just because he showed a little bit last year. But again, I don't make those decisions. I'm not a part of the Saints, so I don't know anything. Trevor Penning, you got to show something. Because right now, you have not lived up to that first round pick. They moved you at tackle. Now they're moving you at guard. You have to show something. I think if Trevor Penning shows that he is an average to possibly above average guard, I think he has a chance. But if he doesn't show anything, if he doesn't show any growth, they're going to move off of him. Because again, you can get a guard anywhere. Not to mention, there are still some really good veteran guard options that are still available. Brandon Scherf, Shaq Mason, Will Hernandez, Cody Whitehair, Dalton Reisner, Mark Lanowski, if you want to take that route, Jonas Sanker, Alante Taylor, Ugo Amadi, Brian Brees, David Godchild. I want to see more from you guys. I want to see exactly, can you guys solidify your role within this team? Because if not, I think the Saints will have no problem making upgrades, especially for Brian Brees. I think I'm pronouncing your last name correct. Hopefully I am. But I want to see more from him. I want to see more from this defensive line. Can this defensive line be effective moving forward? Because last year the defensive line wasn't the best. And granted, I understand you still have Cam Jordan and you have Chase Young as well. But outside of them, who else do you have? Everybody is under a microscope moving forward. Now, yes, I did put safety on here, and this was prior to the Julian Blackmon signing, but But I think now that Julian Blackmon is a part of the Saints, we could actually just cut that out moving forward. But yeah, let's just get into the free agency additions. All right. So for guard, like I just said, you have Brandon Scherf, Shaq Mason, Will Hernandez, Cody Whitehair. For cornerback, if you want to take that route, James Bradbury, Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, Rasul Douglas, Mike Hilton, C.J. Henderson, Michael Davis, Asante Samuel Jr., which I think would actually be a really good move, and Emmanuel Mosley. Defensive line, if you want to take that route, you have Raekwon Davis, DeMarcus Walker, Montravius Adams, Jerry Hughes, Linval Joseph, Maurice Hurst. Quarterback, if you want to take that route, if you want to bring in a veteran quarterback, you have Carson Wentz, CJ Beathard, and Teddy Bridgewater. So, all in all, actually, you know what? I know there was a position that I was missing out on. Cornerback. I want to see how these corners are going to look. Because outside Kool-Aid McKinstry, if I'm Kellen Moore, I possibly would want to make an upgrade at cornerback. Just saying. I mean, you have James Bradbury, Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, Rasul Douglas, Mike Hilton, C.J. Henderson, Asante Samuel Jr. I think getting Asante Samuel Jr. and pairing him with Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think that would actually be really good. On top of that, you have Jordan Reed and you have Julian Blackmon. I think that would be a really effective secondary. But again, I don't make these decisions, okay? Now let's keep on going to the Falcons, all right? So outside linebacker, quarterback, safety, kicker, right tackle, nickel corner, and tight end are all the positions that I'm looking out for. So players I'm looking out for: Jordan Fuller, Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix, Young Ho Koo, D. Alford, Clark Phillips III, Caleb McGarry, Kyle Pitts, and Leonard Floyd. All right, so their storyline. Can Michael Penix improve going into year 2? Granted, we didn't see a whole lot from Michael Penix, but I want to know, can Michael Penix take that next step moving forward? Yes, I know I say it so much, but I hear it so much on different podcasts and whatnot, so I guess it's so ingrained with me. But yes, can Michael Penix take that next step moving forward? When we look at this Falcons team right now, this team just has to improve. Okay, now, and I'm not just saying a specific position, I'm not saying a specific side, but this team as a whole has to improve. This team has weapons. This team could be fairly competitive. Am I saying this team can win the division? No. Am I saying this team can make the playoffs? No. But what I am saying is this. You want to see some level of improvement from this team that makes you say, hey, we're heading in the right direction. We're doing everything that needs to be done. Now, when we look at players to look out for, Jordan Fuller, Kirk Cousins, me personally, I just want to see where Kirk Cousins is. Because right now, hey, there might be a team that say, hey, we'll trade you, X amount of picks or player for Kirk Cousins. Because again, Kirk Cousins continues to show and say that he does not want to be a part of the Falcons because the Falcons did him wrong and all this stuff, yada yada. No one cares about that. Okay, if you want to hear about it, go on Netflix and watch the new quarterback series. Okay, it's not a promotion for Netflix, but hey, Netflix, if you're hearing, if you want to sponsor me, I have no problem doing that, okay? We'll even put the Netflix intro, the little doo-doo in the front of the Football Junkies podcast if you want to. It's no problem. But Jordan Fuller, I definitely want to see an improvement from you. Michael Penix, we already talked about. Young Ho Koo, you had a down year last year, but I believe that you can definitely rebound. We all know things happen in life. You could be going through something at home. You could be, seriously injured and you're just trying to play through it. Different things can happen. So I have no problem giving Young Ho Koo a chance because he's been a really effective kicker for the past few years. Am I saying he's top 5? No, but I think he's possibly maybe like top 10, maybe top 15 at best. Now, as far as nickel corner, I feel like that's open. I feel like that's anybody's job at this point. Do I think Clark Phillips could definitely take it? Yes. Do I think Jordan Fuller could take it? Yes, but only time will tell. Caleb McGarry, I want to see where he is, especially with the extension of the right tackle from the Packers, Zach Tom. I want to see exactly if he's on that level, because if he is, Falcons, you're going to have to pay him that money. You want to pay him some money. Now, I'm not saying you have to reset the market for Caleb McGarry, but I do want to see where he is at this point, and would it be best for the team to bring in competition just so they can see, hey, is he the guy moving forward? Do we want to, back him with money, or do we want to move in a different direction, after this upcoming season? But again, only time will tell. Kyle Pitts, You just got to show something just for other teams. Because all signs point that the Falcons are not going to give Kyle Pitts an extension. So if I'm Kyle Pitts, I'm balling out in both training camp and in the preseason. But that's just me. Now, Leonard Floyd, I only put Leonard Floyd down just because they made significant investments in pass rush with drafting James Pierce and Michael Williams. If they only drafted just one, I wouldn't put him on this list. But because they drafted two, it puts a little bit of pressure for Leonard Floyd. Now, am I saying that Leonard Floyd is going to get cut? No. I think his spot is safe. But there is a chance that they may take some snaps from Leonard Floyd, or they may have or they may move in a different direction concerning him moving forward. But when we look at possible free agency additions for safety, I mean, you have Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons, if you want to take that route, which I don't think they want to take that route. Jordan Whitehead, Quandre Diggs, Chuck Clark. Tackle, if you want to, bring in competition, you have George Fant, Andreas Pete, Isaiah Wynn, Michael Dunn, Raven Clark, Chris Hubbard, Jermaine Ifedi. Corner, if you want to take that route, you have Mike Hilton, you have Asante Samuel Jr., two really good nickel corners. You have Emmanuel Mosley as well if you want to take that route. James Bradbury, Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, Rasul Douglas. If you want somebody that has a little bit more flexibility, if that makes sense. Kicker, you could bring in Nick Folk, Matt Prater, Eddie Pinero, Michael Badley, Zane Gonzalez, Cade York, Austin Seibert, I think is your last name. Hopefully I didn't butcher your last name. My bad if I did. Tight end, you have Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis, Jordan Akins, and CJ Uzma, or George Fant, because he just became a free agent not too long ago. Outside linebacker, you have Matthew Judon, Preston and Zadarius Smith, Kaiser White, Duke Riley, Jalen Reeves, Maben, and Kamul Grazier Hill. So you have options if you want to take that route. I'm not saying that you have to, but if you want to, those are your options. And let's keep things going. Let's go to the Panthers, all right? So their positional battles to watch out for: outside linebacker, wide receiver 2, left tackle, center, and safety. So players to look out for. So you have Hunter Renfrow. Yes, I know it's controversial, but I don't care. Jimmy Horn Jr., David Moore, Austin Corbett. You have Akeem Ekwonu, just to name a few. So with the names that I just listed, so especially for Hunter Renfrow, right? You're just now coming back into the league. I want to see exactly where you are at this point in your career. Are you still the effective slot receiver that you were when you were with the Raiders, or have you aged a little bit? Where's your game at right now? When we come to Jimmy Horn Jr., he was balling out in OTAs and in minicamp. So I want to see, is that going to continue moving into training camp, once you put on the pads and everything. Akeem Ekwonu, I want to see exactly where you are. Because if I'm not mistaken, he's getting ready to come up for a contract, if I'm not mistaken. So I want to see where you are. Their center, Austin Corbett, I want to see where you are. There's a lot of players on this team that I want to see where they are at this point. Outside linebacker, sure, they've made some investments. They got Pat Jones, and they drafted Princely Umanmielen, I think. No, I know I just butchered your last name. Dog, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry if I butchered your last name. But the outside linebacker core, I want to see exactly where they are, because I know they've made a lot of investments at that position specifically. So I just want to see where everybody is at this point. Who's going to stand out, who's going to fall, all of that and more. But, when we look at their storyline for this team, can Bryce Young take the next step? Last year was a rocky year for Bryce Young. There was a point where he got benched, and then Andy Dalton came in. Then, Andy Dalton wasn't playing his best ball. Then he got hurt, I think, in a car accident or something. Then so Bryce Young came in, and then Bryce Young sort of went on this really good run when he was playing really good. So I want to see, is that momentum going to carry on into this season? Because right now, Bryce Young has to live up to that number 1 overall pick. Now, am I saying that he has to be an elite quarterback? No. But I think if he's a top 10, possibly top 15 quarterback, I don't think nobody's really complaining. Now, me personally, I think the number 1 knock for the Panthers this offseason was, I feel like personally they didn't make as many investments into the offense as they did into the defense. They made a lot of moves defensively, but offensively, I'm just like, yo, where's the moves at? Granted, they drafted Tetero and McMillan, but I wanted them to try to make more upgrades from an offensive standpoint. I know I was forgetting something when it came to safety. Nick Scott and Damani Richardson and Latham Ransom. I want to see where where they at as well, because Trevon Moehrig, his spot is solidified. Okay, he's the free agent signing, so he's good. But everybody else, not saying that you're on the hot seat, but you sort of got to do a little bit more extra just so you can solidify your spot on this roster. But going back to to the storyline and everything, I want to see where Bryce Young is. If he's the second or possibly third best quarterback in that division, that's a start. But if he's actually regressed instead of progressed, now we have a problem. But when we look at possible free agency additions, if they want to take that route, especially for outside linebacker, you have Matthew Judon, you have Preston Anzadarius Smith, you have Kaiser White, Duke Riley, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, you have Kamul Grazier Hill, wide receiver. If you want to take that route, you have Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, Chris Conley, Jameson Crowder. Safety, if you want to take that route, you have Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons, Jordan Whitehead, Quandre Diggs, and Chuck Clark. Now for tackle, if you want to bring in competition for Akeem Ekwonu, you have George Fant, Andreas Pete, Isaiah Wynn, Michael Dunn, Raven Clark, Chris Hubbard, and Jermaine Afedi. For center, if you want to bring in competition for him, you have Nick Harris, you have Dan Feeney, Nick Gates, Sam Mustipher, Shane Lemieux, Wesley French, and Deotter Island. So, sure, it's probably not the best options, but you want to try to at least bring in some competition that can at least nudge them, that can at least push them into either playing better, or at least show them, or at least show you as the team, like, hey, this is where they are. We're not satisfied with this, so we're possibly going to make an upgrade via, free agency signing or a trade, or just hold it off and possibly address it in next year's draft. But let's go to the Buccaneers. Let's just end it off with a great team. Positional battles to watch out for: wide receiver, defensive line, tackle, and cornerback. So players to keep an eye out for: Kalijah Kancey, Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick, Jamal Dean, Benjamin Morrison, Tyke Smith, Jacob Parrish, Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, Charlie Heck, and Ben Chukwuemeka. I think I butchered your last name. If I did, I did not mean to do that. But the storyline for the Buccaneers is, can this team take the next step to becoming true contenders? Because I believe they are contenders, but I want them to solidify themselves as true contenders. Because me personally, and I'll probably talk about this in the next episode, I do believe that the Buccaneers are a dark horse Super Bowl candidate. I think right now on both sides of the ball, they are a really good team, and I feel like they could go toe to toe against the Eagles, Lions, or any of the other big name NFC teams that we all consider as Super Bowl teams. Don't hate the messenger, just hate the game. Just saying. But let's start things off with Kalijah Kancey. So he's coming off of a really good season. He had 4.5 sacks, really good. So you see the growth, but I want to see more. I want to see, are you going to continue to grow moving forward? Because I believe Kalijah Kancey could possibly be a 8 to 12 sack type of defensive lineman. He has that skill set, and I think he could definitely do it. The only question is he going to do it this year? Yaya Diaby, I want to see exactly where you are. Because right now, sure, you have Hassan Reddick, sure, you have, other pass rushers, but I just want to see, can you continue to grow? Is there another level to your game? Same thing with Hassan Reddick. We all know what happened with the Jets situation. I want to see, are you the Hassan Reddick of the Eagles, or are you the Hassan Reddick of the Jets? Which version is the Buccaneers getting? Jamel Dean, you're not on the hot seat, but I want to see where you are. Especially with the Buccaneers drafting Benjamin Morrison, I want to see where you guys are at this point. Because right now, Jamel Dean, although you're probably cornerback 2, possibly cornerback 3, I think you're still really productive. So let's see it in training camp. Iron sharpens iron, all right? So Benjamin Morrison, I want to see where you are. I want to see, have you fully healed from that hip injury? Because remember, Benjamin Morrison was supposed to be a first round pick. He only fell because of an injury red flag. Outside of that, his name was going to be called in the first round. No questions asked. Tyke Smith, want to see where you are. Jacob Parrish, they drafted you a few years ago in the third round. I want to see where you are. Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard. I want to see exactly who's going to take that next step. Who's going to solidify themselves on this team, especially with Chris Godwin still rehabbing that ankle injury. This now opens things up between Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan, and Sterling Shepard. Now, granted, Sterling Shepard has a relationship with Baker Mayfield, so they already have chemistry. But I want to see if Trey Palmer is going to take that next step, especially Jalen McMillan, because they are two really good wide receivers that I believe prior to the regular season starting, I do believe that they're going to get traded. Where? I don't know. Now with Charlie Heck and Ben Chukwuma, I feel like personally this is an opportunity for the both of you guys to showcase like, hey, we may not be starting caliber tackles, but we are good backup tackles for any other team. Because right now, with Tristan Wirfs being on the PUP, I think this opens up an opportunity for you guys to showcase yourself for all 31 other teams. Because again, this team is very, 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 and I mean very good. All right? Had the Buccaneers made a move to get Jalen Ramsey, oh, they're a Super Bowl team. 1,000%. I don't care what anyone says. They would have been a Super Bowl team in my eyes. Because Baker Mayfield has been balling out. You already know what you're getting with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, come on. What else do they need for this team? Now, I will say this. The defensive line as a whole, outside of Vita Vea, I want to see can everybody step up to the plate. I want to see if everybody can become better. All right, sure, they made investments in getting Desmond Watson. I want to see what they're going to do with that project. I just want to see this defensive line become more formidable in how it was a few years ago when they won the championship with Brady. But when we look at possible free agency additions, if they want to take that route, cornerback, as I've said before, you have James Bradbury, Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore, Rasul Douglas, Mike Hilton, C.J. Henderson. Tackle, you have George Fant, Andreas Pete, Isaiah Wynn, Michael Dunn, Raven Clark, Chris Hubbard, Jermaine Ifedi. Wide receiver, if you want to take that route, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, Chris Conley, Jamison Crowder. And defensive line, if you want to take that route, as I've said before, you have Jadeveon Clowney, Raekwon Davis, DeMarcus Walker, Montravius Adams, Jerry Hughes, Linval Joseph, and Maurice Hurst. So I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you were listening, please make sure you guys leave a 5-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, all right? We're available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts, all right? Whether it be Amazon Music, I think we're available on there. We're just everywhere, all right? Now, you can follow us on YouTube, all right? Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. When you go on our YouTube, we have a link tree. When you click on that link tree, it'll take you to anywhere and everywhere else that we have Football Junkies content. I have clips that I have to post right now at this moment. I just posted 3 clips yesterday, all right? And also, with the link tree, there is my RSS affiliate link as well. So when you click on that link, it'll take you to the rss.com site. And when you sign up for rss.com, I will be able to get some commissions for it. All commissions will go to the Football Junkies podcast in advancing it and making it better for you guys. All right, now for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies pod. All right, Football_Junkies pod. Junkies pod is now what? It is together, not spaced. All right, it is together, not spaced. Football_Junkies pod. All right, now for my TikTok people, Football Junkies pod. All right, Football Junkies pod. You can follow me on X, GM GM space KAILE. KAILE. It's the same thing with Blue Sky. GM KAILE. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Up next, we're going to the East, all right? That's right, NFC East and AFC East, all right? So guess what? As always, this is your GMKO signing out. Peace and love. Later.